I'm here with May Ho, and May is an educator. And how else do we list your career?
I'm ex-con, I suppose.
I think that was in there. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay. Would you like that in there again?
sure.
Yeah. These come up separately, even though they come in a series.
Mhm.
Great. Well, I appreciate you doing this, as does Marge. And I would like to start with, at what point did you realize that you were a little not following the heterosexual role in terms of your sexuality?
Okay, I was actually 59 and a half, an
Uh-huh.
old lady almost. No,
Did I tell you yesterday about the person that was 80?
yes, you did.
Yeah,
You
okay.
did. Okay, but up to that point, and I know that it's hard to understand, but up to that point, I had no idea that um that I was a lesbian. I mean, throughout my whole life, I'd spent my whole life, um, I guess you might put it as living other people's expectations rather than mine, you know,
It's
because
not unusual. Yeah.
because I grew up in a very traditional Asian family where, of course, we're supposed to at some point get married and have kids. And I'm sorry, get an education. That's really important. Get an education, get a good job, then get married and have kids. And when I went into the convent, it was a big shock to my mom and my dad.
Mhm.
But I broke away from the traditional role at that particular point in time. And my focus on that at that point of time was what I needed to do um, as a good nun, you know. And I mean, I was serious about that. I really invested my whole life into that. So to
What,
think,
since that's that vocation,
uh-huh.
what drew you to that, that made that investment so intense and important?
I think in thinking back about my life, I think I
Mhm.
was always a very serious type of a kid, and
Mhm.
I felt like now that I've had time to think about things, I felt like I needed to take care of people and take care of God's work in this case, and so I was kind of at odds with a lot of people in the community because of the fact that I was serious about this, and I didn't realize when I entered that many of them actually entered for other reasons, to have fun or whatever. And
Do you
and
think part of it was, since I aligned also, as you know, with religious, uh,
mhm,
they were women.
yes,
Yeah. And I
yeah,
worked with
yeah,
them and
right.
loved
And
them.
I mean, there are other things to unpack. I mean, I grew up in a family of three younger sisters and my mom and dad. So my dad was kind of an outlier, so to speak. And
Mhm.
there are five women in the family, and so I think I was first of all more comfortable with being in a female atmosphere.
Right.
The second thing was that I had the realization that I didn't want any kids because my mom was always very strict with me, and I was so afraid that I would end up being the kind of mother she was.
Mhm.
So I wasn't focused on, yeah, I might be a lesbian. There
Mhm.
was nothing like that.
Were you even aware of the word?
No, no,
See,
as
I
a
think
matter
that's
of
really
fact,
interesting to
yeah,
observe.
yeah. I mean, and my whole growing up, we were all always told we were going to go to college, get a good education, get a good job, get married, and have kids. That was what we were going to do.
So
And
were
so,
you raised in California?
yeah, well, partly in California,
Uh,
I was born in Hawaii, but then when I was
uh,
10, we came here to California. But it was all of that mindset. This is what I was going to do.
mhm.
And so a lot of that was caught up in, I don't want to disappoint mom and dad. But of course, going into the convent really did that. It disappointed them.
Mhm.
But conversely, mom, I found out later, mom worked as an RN at Harbor General. She was the head nurse for the neonatal unit. And and there were a lot of Filipino nurses there, Catholics.
Uh-huh.
And so whenever they had a question about the church, they'd ask my mom, and my mom would say, my daughter says,
Right, and she is a nun.
yeah, exactly. My daughter's
Right.
a nun. She says,
Well, she stopped criticizing you then, right?
oh yeah, right.
Did you, you obviously knew that she was doing that.
Well, I found out later.
I see.
So yeah, but 21 years in the convent, off and on, and in between, I did share with you that I did leave one order, and then I left a second order, and then went into a third. So it was 21 years in the convent, but I'd say about a total of 30 years in between, more or less, altogether. So then by the time I left the third order, I was pretty sure at that point, I'm in my late 40s, and I'm pretty sure by that time I don't want to be in religious life ever again.
Was your reason for your leaving just that you were trying to stay in the religious life, see if it would work someplace else better than where you were, that kind of thing?
Actually, yeah, that was part of it. Yeah. And being serious about, again, my intentions. So there was nothing in my mind about, oh, there might be a possibility that I'm gay. Now, in the third order, we did have a couple of nuns who did come out in the community. They did come out, and I mean, that was fine.
It didn't
They,
bother you, right?
no, it didn't bother me. It didn't bother anybody else, and it was just business as usual, because we all had the idea, okay, we all made vows, okay, and so that was it. We all made vows. Chastity was one of the vows that we made, so everybody was sticking to that, no matter what your attraction was, and that was fine.
When they came out, did they then leave the order, the community?
No.
They stayed in it?
One of them did. One of
Uh-huh.
them, she subsequently found a partner.
Mhm.
But the others did not. The other two did not. So it just never occurred to me that I might be gay. It just never did. Then when I left, I decided I'd go into graduate school. So the next maybe 10 years, my mind was focused on graduate school, and not, gee, what am I? Or, that kind of thing. And then, having left graduate school at one point, and, here I am at 58, 59, it's like a relief, because now I can start reading stuff other than journals and articles and stuff like that. I can read relaxing things. And I found myself drawn more and more. Amazon Kindle, okay, it just makes it so much easier to get books. And I found myself being attracted more and more to stories of strong women who had it together. They were independent, they had it together, and all that. And at some point, I realized that I'm reading a lot of stories of female detectives who are lesbians. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I always enjoyed the storyline. That's all. I mean, that's what it was. But it was, again, the strong, independent woman. But meanwhile, I'm realizing that I would like to have a companion, but geez, there aren't any guys that I'm really attracted to. I mean, and then I began to think, geez, there are characteristics about guys I just don't like. And then one night, I'm lying in bed, and I'm reading this one story, again, detectives, and one of them is a female detective, and she's explaining to the other one why that she likes to have. She says, I like to have someone softer in my bed with curves and all that. And
what was the name of that book?
It's called Ice.
It was called what?
Ice, ICE.
ICE. Okay.
I can't remember who wrote it, but the thing is, when she started saying some of those things, all of a sudden something clicked. And I went, because remember, I'm thinking there are characteristics about men I don't like. And so all of a sudden everything clicked, and I went, and I sat up I sat up in bed, and I just went, no.
That could be me.
And yeah, exactly. And I remember sitting there for a couple of minutes, just taking it all in, going, seriously? And I just sat there again and thought and thought and thought, and then I said, "Oh, okay." Um, and all the things that happened as I was a kid, and my relationships with women, and the girls and women that I really admired, it just fell into place. I'm like, "Oh, that's what
Uh,
it was." It was the attraction to them. It wasn't that, I liked them as friends or anything. It was
mhm.
attraction that, so everything started falling into place, and I went, "Oh, okay."
Mhm.
All right.
Did you say, now what am I going to do about this?
Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly what
right.
exactly what I
Uh,
was thinking. Because now, I'm no longer in graduate school. And I'm working in the church as the director of religious education of all things, you know.
mhm.
So now there's this self-acceptance that has to happen. And actually sort of did happen right then and there. It was just a matter of, okay, well, now what do I do?
Mhm.
And one
Throughout your life to that point, did you have people that you met that you felt comfortable confiding in?
Yes, yes.
Uh,
I had some very close friends.
Good.
So I told one of
When you
my
left your order, did you maintain those relationships, or did you have to separate?
actually, no, I did not. They all say things like, "Oh, we're friends forever," and all that. Go
Right,
ahead and keep on writing to me. And then after a while, they stop writing, so you stop writing.
right.
So um
Our lives, they just don't intertwine anymore.
exactly. That's exactly right.
Big difference, right?
Right, exactly. So that was the one thing. And so I had a very close friend who, when I first started graduate school, she and her husband lived very close to one of the colleges that I went to the universities that I went to. So they invited me to stay with them. And it was just really nice. So she has a PhD, and so she used to read my papers and make corrections, and I was able to
Okay.
bounce ideas off her. So I went to her and I
Mhm.
told her, and she just looked at me and she goes, "Hmm." She says, "I can see that." That was not a problem.
Good.
And then I came out to one of my coworkers who is a nun,
Mhm.
because she is also a close friend of my friend Candy that I told. And
Mhm.
I thought, if I came out to her, then the two of them can talk if they want to. They
Right.
don't have to go and find someone
Mhm.
outside. So, and they did, and they were fine with
Mhm.
it. Then I came out to another coworker, a guy who he was the confirmation coordinator,
So when
and
you came out, it's like you really came out
I
after
did little by
that.
little. I
What
did.
a change, huh?
Yeah, to people that I knew I could trust, because I knew working for the church, I could lose my job, especially with the boss that we had then.
See, this is
Um,
the whole thing about coming out. It isn't, it can be an aha moment, which you definitely had, but
uh-huh.
it's expanding for our
Yes,
lives. I think
yes, exactly.
this is a good example that you're showing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, really,
Uh-huh.
it's
But
not a black and white
right, right.
situation.
Right. And the people that I told that were my coworkers at the church, they were people I knew I could trust. So my friend Frank, who was the confirmation coordinator, he had gone through something when he was in high school, because he was a very shy kind of a guy who
Mhm.
was thinking he wanted to be a priest. And so, there were people who were picking on him and saying he was gay, and he isn't.
Mhm.
He eventually married and all that. But when I told him that, he looked at me and he grinned and he says, "I knew that." I said,
Ah,
"How did you know?" "I didn't know."
why'd you tell me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. "Why don't you say something?"
Mhm.
And he just laughed, and that, know,
That's a good thing.
yeah, it was.
Uh,
So then I came out to one of my sisters, and she says, "Oh, okay." And so she was fine with it, not a problem. She has gay friends too. So then we set about telling one of my other sisters, who has had gay friends forever. I mean, she talked about a time when one of her gay friends invited her to a birthday party, his birthday party, and he had his gay guy friends there,
uh,
And
Yeah.
so he made some comment about, oh, I'm so glad I have my friends here. And she felt flattered that he had included her.
Mhm,
So when I came out to her, she was like, oh, okay, no problem. And
mhm,
then we went to my other sister and her husband and my brother-in-law. And they were like very matter of fact. And they said, fine, no problem. If there's anything you want, just let us know. Well,
wonderful, right.
it turns out, it turns out they
Mhm,
have two kids, and the older one is gay,
mhm,
turned out to be gay, maybe trans, we're not sure.
mhm,
Okay. So, so, they're my family has been very accepting. I never said anything to my mom because my mom was already exhibiting signs of Alzheimer's, dementia and
mhm,
Alzheimer's. And I never said anything to her, but I think she suspected and she was fine with it. She's met Donna
mhm.
and,
Ah, good.
her only question to me was, are you happy? I,
Ah,
yes, I'm
mhm,
happy, I'm fine. So I think she would have been, if she really, really knew for sure, she would have been fine with that.
mhm.
Yeah. And, my dad passed away in 2014, so this was years,
Right.
so.
So what, was this in the 80s you were doing this? I'm trying to document
Oh,
it.
I'm sorry. No, this was, let me see, 2014, about 2013,
Okay.
about 2013. Yeah. That I began to realize what was going on
Mhm,
because my dad passed in 2014. So it was about 2013. Yeah, about then. And I proceeded to come out, what I proceeded to do, because I thought it would be easier for me, was to reach out to other Catholic women
mhm,
who are also gay. And I don't think there is anymore, but on Meetup, there was a group that were looking for, were open to Catholic lesbians. And
good.
so I did reach out to them and met a couple of lesbians who one was a priest and the other one was a deacon with I don't remember which church, but they were with a church. And
Mhm,
they actually did a lot to help me in many ways. And but they also had a very specific reading list that I should pursue.
uh-huh,
And they had a bunch of shows that I should look at.
really?
One of them being the L Word, which I
Mhm,
understand from other lesbians is not necessarily typical,
mhm, mhm.
typical lifestyle of lesbians. So they kind of helped me out a little bit. And meanwhile, I reached out to another group in Long Beach, and older women.
So this is all while you're in graduate school?
No, by
Or you're
this,
already working at?
yeah, I'm already working. So I reached out to this group, and
Uh-huh,
I remember the first time I walked in, I was like, they had a game night, and so the room was filled with women. And I
mhm.
walked in, and I'm like, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? Oh my God, I'm in the right place. And some of them were friendly, and some of them just kind of stayed off. And so I started going to this meeting every week, and finally got the courage to talk to one of the women who was there. And because she had just shared something in the meeting where she said, that she had come out 5 years prior.
Uh-huh,
So I was talking to her and I said, I'm just coming out now and I'm not sure exactly, how to meet women, what to do and how to. So she said, first of all, she said, this group has a time after the meeting when they go and they meet at like a coffee shop or something.
the
Um,
real meeting,
yeah, a real meeting. It's
right?
so she said, I think if I were you, she says, I would do that.
Mhm,
So she said that way, you get to know. So I said, okay. And so I
mhm,
started doing that. And sure enough, people started talking. But she told me straight out, she said, you need to understand that there are some women who don't like us. They don't like those of us who came out later because they've gone through a lot. And we haven't because we came out later. And it has nothing to do with, you know, you or anything. That's just the way they are. So some of them are like that with others. So be careful. She said, be careful. And I found myself thinking, well, you can't account for other people's stories, because had I been younger, maybe I would have come out, maybe well, had I been younger when I realized, maybe I would have come out then, maybe not, depending on the circumstances. I don't know.
And
But
sometimes too, when you have a difficult relationship with your mother,
right,
it
right,
doesn't make you say, well, let me embrace a lesbian.
right.
Like
And I
the
already
life of another woman being
exactly
person for me.
right. And I already knew how my dad felt about it, because he talked about, being in the army, and how some of the guys had realized that two other guys had been, were getting together, and how they treated them and stuff like that. So I knew my dad was not going to be happy with it. So I don't know what I would have done had I been
Mhm.
younger,
Right.
and so hearing that these other women would put down other women who are coming out later, it just didn't make sense to me. It's like, you don't know the story. Why are
No,
you making a judgment?
right.
So this woman,
They act out of their own fear, but it's very painful.
right.
The recipient of that.
Exactly, exactly. So, this woman did tell me, just be careful who you
Mhm.
talk to, because some of them don't like us. Some of them don't like men. Some of them, I'm like, but we're all in this together. What is? Mhm.
So I'm glad I know you.
I'm glad I know you too. Thank you.
Right. Okay, have a good day.